The Secret War in the Middle East. How Iran's leaders played both sides. The 1970s were a defining period in global history, marked by Cold War rivalries, an oil crisis, and a rising tide of regional conflicts. At the heart of the Middle East's shifting sands stood Iran, led by Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, a ruler whose ambition was matched only by his political cunning. The Shah had a vision to position Iran as the undisputed leader of the Middle East and a critical player on the world stage. But achieving this vision required navigating treacherous geopolitical waters, balancing alliances with the two greatest superpowers of the era, the United States and the Soviet Union. What followed was a secret war, not fought with guns and tanks but through diplomacy, espionage, and strategic manipulation. It was a high-stakes game where Iran played both sides, shaping the outcomes of regional conflicts, while securing its dominance and survival. The foundations of power, Iran and the United States. To understand Iran's maneuvers in the 1970s, we must first look back to the 1950s, when its alliance with the United States was forged in blood and oil. In 1953, Operation Ajax, orchestrated by the CIA and MI6, toppled Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. Mossadegh's decision to nationalize Iran's oil industry had enraged Western powers, who feared the loss of lucrative profits and potential Soviet influence. The coup reinstated the Shah's autocratic rule. Though hesitant at first, the young monarch quickly embraced his Western backers, seeing them as essential to his survival. Operation Ajax did more than secure oil interests. It established a bond between Iran and the United States that would define their relationship for decades. As the Cold War escalated, Iran's strategic location became indispensable to Washington. Nestled between the Soviet Union to the north and the resource-rich Persian Gulf to the south, Iran was a bulwark against communist expansion. The Shah capitalized on this, positioning Iran as a linchpin of U.S. Middle Eastern policy. The Nixon Doctrine, Iran's rise as a policeman of the Gulf. By the late 1960s, the U.S. sought to reduce its military footprint abroad. President Richard Nixon introduced a policy that placed regional allies in charge of their own security, supported by American weapons and funding. Iran, wealthy from surging oil revenues, became the centerpiece of this doctrine. Under the Shah's leadership, Iran received billions of dollars in military aid. The Shah's shopping list for the Iranian military was extravagant: F-14 Tomcat fighter jets, state-of-the-art tanks, and sophisticated missile systems. With this arsenal, Iran became the most powerful military force in the Persian Gulf. For the Shah, this partnership was a means to an end. He envisioned Iran not merely as a regional power but as a global player. His military expansion was paired with ambitious modernization projects, from highways and railroads to nuclear energy programs. Iran was transforming rapidly, its skyline changing as fast as its geopolitical ambitions. Spies in the shadows, joint intelligence operations. Iran's collaboration with the United States extended beyond arms deals. American radar systems were installed along Iran's northern border, serving as listening posts for monitoring Soviet activities. These systems tracked missile launches, troop movements, and intercepted communications. In exchange for hosting this critical surveillance infrastructure, Iran gained access to advanced U.S. intelligence. The partnership wasn't one-sided. Iranian intelligence, led by Covert, played a key role in suppressing communist activities in the region. Covert agents trained under the CIA's guidance became adept at identifying and neutralizing threats, both real and imagined. The Shah used this intelligence not only to appease his American allies but to strengthen his grip on power at home. A dance with the bear, Iran's covert ties to the Soviet Union. While Iran appeared to be a steadfast ally of the United States, the Shah secretly cultivated a pragmatic relationship with the Soviet Union. This dual approach was not born of ideology but of strategy. By engaging with both superpowers, Iran ensured it could never be taken for granted. One of the most significant aspects of this covert relationship was economic cooperation. Iran signed trade agreements with Moscow, including a landmark deal to export natural gas to the Soviet Union. These deals were mutually beneficial. Iran diversified its revenue streams, while the Soviets gained access to resources that supported their industrial economy. The Shah also used his Soviet connections to counterbalance American influence. By demonstrating that he could engage with Moscow, he extracted greater concessions from Washington, including advanced military technology and economic aid. Proxy wars and covert operations, the battlefield beyond borders. Iran's strategy extended beyond diplomacy and into the realm of covert operations. In regional conflicts, the Shah played a double game, supporting opposing sides to maximize Iran's influence. The Kurdish insurgency in Iraq. One of the most striking examples was Iran's involvement in the Kurdish insurgency against Saddam Hussein's regime in Iraq. With the backing of the US and Israel, Iran supplied Kurdish rebels with arms and funding. The conflict destabilized Iraq, Iran's long-standing rival, and kept Baghdad preoccupied. But in a stunning twist, the Shah abandoned the Kurds in 1975. The Algiers Accord, a treaty signed between Iran and Iraq, resolved a border dispute but required Iran to cut off support for the Kurdish rebellion. This betrayal left the Kurds vulnerable to brutal reprisals, a move that cemented Iran's reputation as a pragmatic but ruthless player. Lebanon, sowing the seeds of Hezbollah. During Lebanon's civil war in the 1970s, Iran extended covert support to Shiite militias. This involvement would later bear fruit in the form of Hezbollah, a group that would dominate regional politics and serve as a key instrument of Iranian influence in the decades to come. Afghanistan, a calculated gamble. Even in Afghanistan, Iran played both sides. While cooperating with the US to counter Soviet influence, the Shah discreetly explored ties with Afghan leaders aligned with Moscow. This dual approach ensured that Iran retained leverage over its volatile neighbor. The revolution, the end of an era. The Shah's delicate balancing act unraveled in 1979 with the Iranian Revolution. Discontent brewed among the Iranian people, fueled by economic inequality, political repression, and resentment of Western influence. Protests erupted, growing into a full-blown revolution that toppled the monarchy. The Islamic Republic that replaced the Shah adopted a fiercely anti-American stance, fundamentally altering Iran's foreign policy. Yet, the pragmatic strategies of the Shah, playing rival powers against each other, remained a hallmark of Iran's approach to geopolitics. The legacy of Iran's secret war. The Shah's secret war reshaped the Middle East in profound ways. Destabilized rivals, Iraq, Lebanon, and Afghanistan bore the brunt of Iran's manipulations. Exacerbated Cold War tensions. Iran's maneuvers heightened the stakes in the US-Soviet rivalry. Empowered the US military-industrial complex. Billions in arms sales to Iran fueled America's defense industry. Today, the legacy of Iran's duplicity during the 1970s offers lessons in the complexities of global diplomacy. It demonstrates how small powers can wield influence far beyond their size and how alliances are often built on shifting sands. The story of Iran's secret war is a testament to the lengths nations will go to secure their place in an uncertain world.